Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of Artaholics. I know I've been away for a while. It's been like a month, actually, that I've been away, but it's for a good reason. And that reason helped me to improve myself as an artist. And it helps me to make something special. But let's focus on today, because today I got with me a new artist who defined herself as a painter, right? And I'm really excited to talk to her. And please introduce yourself, Nicole. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Right?
So I'm Nicole.
Right?
I'm from Edinburgh as well. I'm half Italian though, so
Perfect.
I sort of get quite a lot of influence from my Italian heritage as well, which is nice.
Right. Yeah, that's what one of the main questions that I wanted to ask you. I mean, what are your main inspirations? First of all, we're gonna have like a small chat, a small conversation about her influences, about what helps to improve to her, and after that, we're gonna jump to something more technique. Okay, for those artists who would like to jump into paintings or into make something more artistic. So she's gonna help us in this situation. So let's talk about it. I mean, what are your main inspirations about?
So it does change, you know, depending on sort of what point of my life I'm in, to be honest. As you know, life changes, so what inspires me changes, and my artwork changes as well with that. If you go back to see sort of over the last few years, the subjects that I paint have actually varied quite a lot. So at the minute, I'm doing quite a lot of seascapes, mainly because I've recently just moved down to the sort of the coast in Edinburgh.
Right.
So I'm living right next to a harbour now, and it's hard not to be inspired by that.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's so beautiful with the boats. It's so peaceful. So yeah, I definitely am drawing a lot of inspiration from that just now.
And in Italy, you live as well close to the coast, or you live?
Well, I've never actually lived in Italy. So I have family there.
Right.
And I've spent 3 weeks there in sort of April, May time. So I was in the north, and just everything about Italy is inspiring, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been there a few times.
Yeah.
It's a lovely place.
Yeah,
Really
beautiful. The architecture. So when I came back, especially after visiting Venice, I had been before, but this time I think I took it in more. And it really sort of hits you in the face how beautiful it is. So I've got a lot. Yeah. So I've done a little bit of painting of Venice so far, but I still have like a lot of photos in my camera that I need to kind of go through and spend a lot more time.
Do you use those photos that you make and then you just trespass it, or you just transform them into paintings?
I do try and use my own photos when I can. I mean, I'm not a photographer by any means, but I do find it easier because I can kind of remember the feeling I had when I was in that place taking that picture. So it does help with the painting side of it. And then sometimes it'll just come from my imagination as well. Just, I know I maybe want to paint a seascape and I know what colors I want to use. So then I just sit down and just sort of let it flow and see what happens.
Right. So when you create a new canvas, a new painting, do you have like any previous idea of what do you want to paint, or?
Usually I do.
You do?
Yeah, because I find it really hard actually to sit down and paint. And if you have no idea what you're going to do, for me, I need to have some direction. Otherwise, I would just be sitting there for hours, not doing anything.
Yeah.
But then that's what's quite hard, because you don't always have that inspiration, that sort of idea. So sometimes I have to wait, until that comes to me, which means I could maybe not paint anything new for weeks or months even. But then when it comes to me in my mind, and I can actually sort of see how I want the finished piece to look, and then when you sit down and actually start to do it, it doesn't always go to plan. And as I'm painting, then things can start to change and form a bit differently. But as long as I have like an idea, then when I sit down, you get into like the flow when you're working. So then it's okay, you know, things can. And when I work with watercolors, especially, they're quite hard to control sometimes, you know. So you can't always be 100% sure on the like final results of the painting.
Have you ever feel when you're painting or you're trying to paint something new, like something really common in artists, that is, you cannot really compose anything in your mind, so you don't feel inspired at all, like you cannot paint anything? Have you ever feel like that?
Yeah, I'd say so. And I don't really enjoy painting things that are super realistic as well, because I find that I'm just not, it's not going to look like the photo, it's not going to look like the real thing, and I don't want it to look perfect either. So it's better I've got some, I like to do things a little bit more abstract sometimes, because I feel like you get a bit more emotion in there.
How would you describe the techniques? Because what I know so far, I'm not a pro, I'm not expert in paintings, but I know so far there's like specific kinds of specific styles to the painting, using the brush, using different tools.
I mean, I'm definitely not an expert. Like, I never studied art at college. I don't have an art degree.
Right.
So there's definitely people out there who have all of that kind of knowledge behind them. A lot of my knowledge is, I mean, I have sort of been self-taught, but a lot of it is from just doing the work as well and practice. You know, you kind of learn what works and what doesn't work. I tend to work mostly in watercolors, but then I also enjoy working in acrylics as well. It usually depends what I have in mind to paint. Will then decide, do I do it in watercolor or do it in acrylics? And then also the size as well. If I'm going to work on a big canvas, acrylics is easier. So for like technique with watercolor, wet on wet is my preference usually, because you can get some really unusual, like I said, there's less control, but then that can make it more beautiful, because then the paints are mixing together and they're doing something really special that you just don't know how it's going to turn out, and that's quite exciting for me. So that's definitely my favorite way of working. But then with watercolor, I find you've got sort of less, you have to kind of get it right on the first time. It's less forgiving. Unlike acrylic, you can keep going over it, do different layers until you're happy with it, really. Watercolor, you have to be very, like, quite thoughtful about when you're putting the paint down.
Right.
Because you have to make sure you're putting your lightest colors down first. Because you can't put a light watercolor on top of a dark watercolor.
Right. So basically, when you use acrylics, you can just blend it or mix it, but when you use the other style, it's more complicated to adjust it. Right. Something like that.
You have to have a clear idea where you want your lightest lights to be, where you want your shadows to be. You really need to know these things when you're starting to paint, because you can't really take the watercolor away that you've put down. Whereas when you're using acrylics, you can easily add the white on top of a dark paint. Like I said, once acrylic is dry, then you can paint over it completely. You could paint a completely different painting on top of it, one you'd already did. With watercolor, that's it. Like you can do work in layers in watercolor, but you have to, each layer is getting darker. Right. So your first layer has to be your lightest lights, and then, I mean, with some of the paintings I've done, you sort of you can let the layer dry and then work on top again. It's a process. But each time the paints are getting darker, and then that's when you can start to add some more sort of details in and the shadows in. So that's the part of the painting I like. I like the end of it. When I can see it's all come together, and then I can start to do all the little details.
Right. Is it complicated for you to work with shadows tones, color, palettes.
Yeah. Yeah. Your palette's the most important thing.
Yeah. Colors, it's really important for a picture.
Yeah. Trying to have complementary colors is important. And then I feel like when you have an understanding of that and, you know, of color theory, then you can have a pink sky, a purple sky, as long as the rest of the painting complements it. And also to have a cohesive painting is important.
Right.
So, for example, in this one, you can see I've got pinks in the sky, but then I also carried it down into the water.
Yeah.
So if I didn't have any of this color down here, it might have looked a bit disjointed, the sky and the sea.
Right.
So it's when you're taking, and it goes the same with acrylics as well. If you want a cohesive painting, you're wanting to take the color, but then try and move it around the picture.
Yeah.
So it's not too, you know, you just have blue here and pink here and purple here. You want to try and move it around so that you get like a good feeling about. So that sort of color, what I would say is one of the most important things.
Tones and the color palette.
Yeah.
Is there any of this, or do you have any like really meaningful picture or painting that you ever had? Like any that you really paint, and after that you say, yeah, I put like all my whole soul, my whole heart into this painting?
There's one that has a lot of emotion in it for me, which is in my house. And it was actually an old canvas I had that I wanted to repaint. And it took me kind of over a year to actually from start and finish, because I started it and then I left it for a long time and then I went back to it because I was just going through a lot in my personal life.
Okay.
So then that affected the painting as well. And then when I moved into the flat I'm in now, I was like, I need to finish it. And now it's actually going to go into this space. But just all the different emotion, all the different layers that went into it, it's just abstract. You know, it's a lot of people probably wouldn't feel anything towards it, but for me, it holds so much emotion in that one painting. And I'm just really proud that I actually finished it, because it's so easy to just give up on something, especially if it's not looking right, it's not going well. You can easily just like give up on that piece.
When you feel frustrated that you're not getting what you were looking for.
Art can be very frustrating. When painting's not going to plan, sometimes you do maybe have to say, okay, like with watercolor, for instance, if you really mess up, then there's no going back.
There's no return. There's no going back.
Sometimes you do have to just be like, okay, this was not a good day, and that painting's just gonna. I don't like putting them in the bin, so I do have a pile of really terrible paintings in my house that nobody's ever gonna see, and they're really rubbish.
Right. So normally you try to, for example, if you made a mistake or something, you try to make something different over the mistake, or you just...
Depending on what it is, to be honest. If you can rescue it, brilliant. But it's really frustrating. Like, even some of these paintings, I see mistakes in them, personally. Things that I were like, that's not exactly what I wanted that to look like. So I'm quite critical. And I think probably a lot of artists are very critical of their work. And I look at it with a critical eye.
Right.
Other people looking at these paintings probably wouldn't see the things that I see, which is quite, it's interesting. And I have to tell myself that, because when other people look at it, they're looking at all like the things that they like about it. And that's like, I need to hear that sometimes, you know, being said back to me. I'm like, okay, it is a good painting, you know?
Do you think for an artist, this is something that I'm curious, do you think for an artist it's good or bad to be critic with himself, herself, with itself?
I think it's good to a point, because it helps you learn, and it's a good thing to push yourself. and push that creativity, you don't always want to stay in a safe place, then I don't think you would really grow and develop, you know, as an artist if you did. So it definitely helps, I think, to be critical. But then I always ask other people's opinions, you know, my friends and my family. I like to know what they think of it as well, especially my mum. If she's very honest with me, so if it's not good, then she'll tell me it's not good.
So she just goes straight to the point, and if she doesn't like it,
but sometimes I need that as well. Because when you're looking at something for so long yourself, then you're like, I don't know anymore. Is this good? Is it rubbish? It's really hard sometimes to be your own judge. So it does help to have someone that you can, you know, ask their opinion.
People to be honest. If it's bad, it's better to know about it.
And some people, like anything I did, they'd be, oh my God, it's amazing. But I do sometimes need, you know, a little bit of critique as well from the people I trust and I'm closest to.
Have you ever happened to you, for example, in one of these exhibitions that you ever go, that any customer approached to you and they told you, this painting is not so good. There's many people, for example, they could tell you, I'm a painter as well, and I think something not good here, being critic with you.
I've been quite lucky that I've not had anything really bad.
Right, that's good.
The last exhibition I did, there was a young girl, maybe around 12 or 13, and the way she spoke like an art critic.
Right.
And she was actually looking at my paintings quite critically and really like examining them, and said to me, oh, you know, maybe you could actually have added something like this in this painting. I was like, yeah, maybe you're right, actually. Right. So she wasn't just being like, oh yeah, this is great. She was honestly analyzing the painting. She was, I think, trying to look at for the technique I use. And she was being very honest with me as well, which is nice, but that's kids. Kids can be brutally honest sometimes, but she did it in a very nice way. So that's the worst I've had to my face anyway.
So far, wasn't something really bad.
Yeah.
Likely. I'm curious about as well. How did you reach the point of, because you told me that you never go to the university, you never studied something about art or any relative to it. How did you reach the point that you said, okay, I'm gonna try to jump into this world? Because honestly, in these times, this kind of art could be difficult to deal with it, or even in conventions could be difficult to make sales, something like that.
Yeah, I never set out to be an artist, and even now I find it quite a strange thing, to be honest.
Being an artist.
Yeah, just that the title, I guess, that I'm an artist, but I'm like, well, I am. You know, I create art for other people to enjoy as well as myself. So that's what an artist is.
Yep.
I never set out. It started as a hobby because I went through some really bad health to the point where I was like in the house all the time. I had to stop working. My hobbies had all kind of gone. So I needed something for my mind, for my sanity. I needed something to keep me going. And it was actually my sister who asked me one Christmas, could you make me something instead, you know, for a present? Why don't you try and make me something? And then my best friend as well, I spoke to her about it, and for Christmas she bought me a set of paints and some paper and the brushes. So I was like, okay, I've got no excuse now, I'll sit down. And that's how it started. I just started by making things for my friends and my family, and they really enjoyed it. And then for myself as well. And that went on for about 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
So you've been 2 years, working on this business? Could you call it business, or you can call it...
Well, it wasn't a business at that point. It was just a hobby.
A hobby.
And then it got to just before Christmas one year, and I was trying something new, because I like trying new things. And I was like, actually, this is quite good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just, I was like, oh, I'll just try it and see how they turn out. I was like, this is actually really good. I was making like little Christmas tree decorations.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is a really nice idea. I think people might actually want to buy these.
Yeah.
So I set up an Etsy shop, put some designs up on Etsy.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing I know, I had so many orders coming in.
Right.
Like, I think I made about 150 to 200 of these ornaments in the space of like 6 weeks.
Right.
And I wasn't expecting it at all, because then my friends are all wanting to support me, my family wants to support me, so then they're ordering as well. So then I had all these orders coming in. So that's how it started.
Right. So there were people just asking you just to make something for them as well?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Small things like bookmarks. That's how I started painting bookmarks.
Right. Oh, really? You start with that?
Yeah.
All right.
And I still make them now as well. I hand paint them because I actually like working on a very small canvas. And I even have like tiny little canvases now that I sell, like this tiniest little painting. I really like, it's a bit of a challenge when you have a very small canvas. And you can get so much detail into it as well. You could really spend a long, I don't, because I can't charge that much for a tiny little painting. So, but you could spend a long time on, you know, doing such a small painting. So yeah, I still enjoy doing that, but that's how it started. And then they gradually, I think, just got bigger and bigger and bigger, the paintings that I did.
And how's it going now in these days?
Good. So I still have the Etsy shop up and running. So on there, I do some like personalized things as well. So I do like personalized cards. I make trinket dishes as well. That was another thing that I just wanted to try. Like I said, I like trying new things. So I had some air dry clay sitting there, and I just had an idea, and I was like, okay, let's try it. Did a kind of first attempt. That was a gift from my niece. And then from there, I just kind of improved on it and got better. And now they do really well. They're like a really beautiful gift for an engagement or a wedding present. So I'm really proud of them. When I look at them, I'm like, that's really good. It's like, I'm so like, so you could buy that in a shop somewhere. You know, I was like, really, it meant quite a lot. But then when people comment on my paintings, that really means the most to me. Because I feel like that's obviously where I'm being the most vulnerable, when I'm being creative. So when they're commenting and telling me, you know, how much they enjoy my work, that's like all I need really to keep going sometimes.
Yeah, I believe that's the peak of every artist, right? Like feeling the people love in your art, in your job.
Yeah, so I started doing markets as well. Locally, sort of around Edinburgh. I started last Christmas, didn't know what to expect, and I've done one really every month since then, and that's been lovely because I'm actually interacting with people face to face, and not just, you know, online, which is so nice when I see people and they can come and they can pick things up and look at them and ask me questions, and I get to give them a bit more of an explanation, and they get to know me and who I am as well. I think that's really special.
I'm going to ask you, because I'm so interested into this, because this day I've been thinking about making my own art into canvas or into something more physical, because I think in my opinion, it's hard, it's complicated to make sales online or show the people what do you want to show through the website or any online. In your opinion, where have you seen more interesting from the people? Through any conventions that you go, more physical, more canvas, or through Etsy, your website?
Definitely in person, through the markets. I've realized, I mean, I don't know, I've kind of lost track now how many markets I've done. I'd say it's probably around 8 or 9. And just, like I said, then being able to ask you questions and actually, oh, are you the artist? And you can be like, yes, and maybe tell them a little bit about your background. people being able to connect is so important, I think. Online, it's a lot harder. You would have to really, I mean, I have Instagram, I have an okay following.
Right.
I don't feel super comfortable like filming myself. I kind of just want to focus on the work, you know, and I want to be able to share the work. And I try and get some of who I am across. But I think for someone to really be able to connect, you're having to do that like daily. Right. Really, you know, telling them about your life, about who you are, actually showing your face, but like on a daily basis. I think for someone to really feel that enough of a connection to want to maybe buy their art if they weren't already considering it. So in person, I think it's just a lot easier. You don't have to put on as much of a show. You know, I can just show up, be myself, speak to people. Yeah.
Create more connections through the people.
Yeah. So definitely it's a lot better in my opinion. Online, I think, is good for some things. Like online, I mainly do like the personalized things. Right. That's not something that I really offer in person. It's just a bit too complicated, you know? So, yeah.
So then you will use just your website, Etsy, Instagram, maybe for something more different, something more, something that you don't really show when you're in an exhibition or convention, something like that.
So it's kind of the other way around. In person, I show things that I've never even shared online before. I think maybe not the best thing to do, but now I have some giclée prints, but I also will bring some original paintings with me as well. And sometimes because I'm sort of painting them specifically for that market, and I get them all packaged up and I'm ready to go, I haven't even had a chance to photograph them or anything. And then someone comes and buys it and I'm like, okay, I'll never see that again. You know, it's gone.
Yeah.
Which some people are like, oh no, that's like terrible. But for me, it's quite nice because it's gone to someone who's going to enjoy that painting now. I have, you know, a memory of what it looked like and maybe I'll recreate something similar. But it's special. It's unique. You know, no one else is going to have that painting that they've got. And like I said, I've never even like shared it on Instagram or even taken a picture of them sometimes. So it's maybe not the best way to work, but those customers have got a very unique painting, something really special, which is nice. And yeah, online I keep it a bit more kind of not generic, but like I'll sort of have the prints and my sort of like standard stuff that I do.
Mostly for promotions, maybe, could say.
Yeah, I need to work on it more.
Right, like kind of marketing stuff and all those.
Yeah, because sometimes, like I said, I'll work on something new and then I just forget to share it and then I end up like selling it or, you know, the marketing side of things is hard and I've still never really got to grips with it fully. You have to put a lot of effort in, you know, to get results. Like you really do need to put a lot of time and effort in. So it's not really something, like I said, I'd rather focus on what I'm creating personally. But then when you're trying to look at it from like with a business head, it's I'm not a business-minded person.
Right.
Like I said, I never started painting with the intention of it becoming a job. And even when I set up the Etsy shop, it wasn't really like, this is what I'm going to be doing for like the next few years. That wasn't what I was thinking at that time. For me, it's been a natural progression of things.
And what about now? Do you see yourself doing these things for many years?
I don't think I would ever stop doing it. It's a part of me now. So even if I take breaks from it, I think I'll always come back to being creative. You know, it's such a good outlet and I enjoy it. And I enjoy, like I said, seeing other people's reactions and to be honest, it's a nice like boost when someone's really likes something, and they'll buy things as a gift for other people, which I think is really special. I've had quite a lot of done quite a lot of paintings for like newborns. So I'll do a personalized painting for a newborn baby. And just the thought that there's so many like babies' nurseries around the UK that has something that I made in them, I just think it's lovely. So I don't see me ever stopping, but I don't know if it will be something that I'll do full time. I'll probably always have it in the background anyway.
What about making your own or developing your own business in terms of opening your own shop or making an exhibition? Maybe have you planned about it?
I've never thought about doing an exhibition myself, actually.
Right.
But
any reason for that?
No reason. It's just never crossed my mind. So now you've put that thought in my head. You never know. Even when I was approached about doing an exhibition by someone else, that kind of took me back, because I was like, I hadn't really thought, because I never, like I said, I never went to art school or anything. So I've never been around that kind of world where exhibitions are sort of a standard thing. So for me, it was a really big deal, because I just sort of built up doing things online, and I'm just sharing what I'm doing online with people. So then when I make the switch to actually start sharing things with people in person, it's a big switch. It is. But yeah, things have just happened, you know. Opportunities have just come up sometimes that I wasn't planning, but I'm like this podcast, for example. I wouldn't have thought I would have ever done a podcast about anything. But then when an opportunity comes up, sometimes you just need to see where it takes you. So who knows? Maybe I will do my own exhibition one day. Be quite cool.
actually, I take a few places here. There's a couple here in Edinburgh. It's good price, not really expensive, and you can just rent it for the whole place. It's a big place. It's for 5-6 hours. And they promote your work and everything.
I feel like when I have a very strong kind of collection of work, then that would be when I would look at it, you know. At the minute, I'm been focusing a lot on markets. So then when I'm creating, I'm sort of creating with that in mind. But then it takes me away from creating for myself as well. It's difficult when you're making it a business. Because then when you're creating what you think people are going to want to buy and what they're going to want to see. Because you do have to think like that as well. There's not really much point in you just doing whatever you want, but then you're wanting to make money from it. Then what you've done is completely wrong direction as well. You have to find that balance. It's hard sometimes.
Let's be honest. I mean, as an artist, we're both artists. We know that it's nice to show our art and show our expressions, emotions through art. But being realistic, I think we need to get some money from somewhere just to develop ourselves.
And a lot of artists do. They're very good at thinking with their business mind and looking at the market and creating something, you know, targeted to their market. And then that's when they're successful. But I feel like I'm kind of still on a bit of a journey, to be honest. I'm still learning as well as I go. And like I said, my inspiration changes, you know, at different points of my life, depending where I'm living. If I go on holiday, all sorts of things can inspire you, how you're feeling inside. So things change, and what I'm doing now is probably going to change maybe by the end of the year. I'll maybe have found some new inspiration at the end of the year, who knows.
Have you ever think about, I don't know, try different things like digital art or jump into something different apart from paintings and canvas?
I mean, I think digital art is very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it would take me a long time to learn it, to be honest.
Right.
I'm not super, like, I'm not really a techie person.
Mm-hmm.
So it would take me a long time to just learn the basics of how it actually works. So it would be cool because I think I would be able to, it would definitely open up what I could do.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to say I'm lazy, but I just like, I just don't really want to spend the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I like learning new things.
Yeah.
I like learning them quickly.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's kind of a problem of mine. I don't like to spend too long on one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not someone that could sit there and spend 40 hours on one piece.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I would get bored. It's the truth. I would.
Makes sense.
Some people can. They
Mm-hmm.
can spend years working on something.
Yeah.
But for me, I sort of like to see results faster than that.
What about for the newy people that are starting in this kind of art, paintings, canvas, and everybody who will be watching this video? What would you say is the worst part or the most difficult side of doing this kind of art?
Maybe when you don't feel that inspiration.
Right.
And
feel frustrated, I would say.
Yeah. If things aren't really going how you want, and you take a break from it, and then it can be really hard to get back into it again. Sometimes, like I said, I'll go weeks maybe without having actually sat and painted and created something new. And the longer I wait, the harder it is then to actually. It's just the thought of sitting there with a blank piece of paper in front of you can be quite daunting sometimes.
Yeah.
I am a perfectionist, I'm not going to lie. And like, I don't really like making mistakes. And, you know, if I paint something, I want it to be good. It just doesn't always happen that way. But just the thought of, oh, I'm going to sit down, and if I don't really have, like I said, a clear idea of what I want to do, it's probably going to be rubbish. And then that's kind of a bit defeating, you know? So you just have to keep going.
You mean if you try to create something when you don't feel it, like you don't feel creative?
Yeah,
it's going to be rubbish.
Yeah, it does. It's every time, especially like, you know, I have like a long-term illness now. I have ME, and there are days where I'm really fatigued. I'm maybe not feeling great, but I think, oh, I'll try and do something. I'll try to sit down and I'll paint, and then because I'm not feeling good, it just turns out terrible. Because I'll make maybe mistakes, and just my mind's just not in it, or my heart's not in it. One of them, both of them aren't in it. So it just doesn't work out. It helps when you actually feel in the right mood to do it.
Yeah. Because of that, what's your opinion about the art that is considered these days, like this kind of, you know, this really topic in these days, being obsessed with the AI art, people that just write something and there's an intelligence that just create something from nothing?
I don't like it. I find it a bit scary that AI is kind of going to replace everything, even creativity. I mean, it won't, because it's not the same. People might enjoy looking at it, but it's not the same from when it's actually come from a real person, and the skill that that person has and the emotions that that person has. You know, a computer can't replace that. It can do a very good job, and people might really enjoy it, but it's worse obviously for digital artists. And AI can't exactly pick up a paintbrush and start painting on a canvas, but for digital artists, I think it's going to be hard for you to do something sort of unique that AI is not going to be able to replicate. I don't know how it's going to work, to be honest.
So you will never consider using it, not even just create a whole picture, but maybe create like a sketch of maybe a project or maybe a picture that you want to make, and then you use the AI, and then from there you just paint it in physical?
Possibly. I mean, it could be a good tool for artists to use. Some people do struggle with like that creative kind of process, and I think that is the hardest part, is coming up with the ideas. To be honest, for me, I find that hard. Constantly thinking of like new ideas and finding that inspiration, but trying to keep it fresh as well is hard. So it could be a good tool for that, just to give you those sort of creative ideas for you to then maybe follow on and make art from. So yeah, it might be a good tool. I don't know if I'll personally use it. Maybe I could as an experiment.
Right. Yeah, try something different, right?
Yeah, maybe. Be interesting to see what it comes up with, to be honest, but we'll see.
So in general terms, obviously it's important for you because obviously you're showing your emotion through the painting, but in terms of businesses, in terms of creating something for the future, do you think it's worth it to develop this kind of skills for the people that maybe will be watching and they say, should I jump into this kind of art, because these days maybe it's not so popular as it used to?
Yeah, it's a good question. For me, I would always promote like any creative outlet and not looking at it, you know, as a business or to make a profit on. Just for your own like well-being, to have a creative outlet, I think is really important for your mental health. And actually sticking to something and learning and developing skills is just a really good thing to have, you know, no matter what it is. And I always say to people like that say, oh, I can't paint, you know, I'd be rushed. Like, anyone can paint, you know. You can try.
Yeah.
Like, it might be rubbish, that's fine though, but like, have a go. As long as you enjoy it, I think is important. If you don't enjoy it, then find something else that you do enjoy, really. But there's definitely a market out there. Like, I've seen it, you know. People, especially, they like my original paintings more than the prints.
So original paintings. Okay.
Which I find quite interesting. They really want something that's unique and that they can actually say, this is a painting that's been done by a person, an artist, and it's not just like a generic print. That's what I'm sort of getting from people, that they do like something special. Right.
So yeah, it's like more special just to have like a canvas or something more physical.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people like, I've had a lot of commissions as well. People like it when it's sort of unique for them. You know, if they can maybe request certain things, then it's something that's actually special for them, has meaning.
Yeah.
That's what I sort of gather anyway, that people want something that does have meaning to it and isn't always, it's not just generic. There's a story behind it, you know?
Right. So yeah, for the people who will be interested in jumping into this kind of art, just give it a try. Yeah. Try to show your emotions through the paint and through the brush as well, obviously.
And just practice.
Just practice.
And enjoy it.
Try yourself, enjoy the journey, right?
Yeah, that's it. It's a journey. And if you're putting, you know, like, you have to be the best as your end goal, like, you need to realize that you have to go on the journey to actually get there. You know, you're developing as an artist, as a human, and connecting with other people. It's important.
Yeah. Any last thing that you would like to tell to the people who will be watching this? Any future painting will be maybe inspired by you?
Well, just go for it. Like, you have nothing to lose by trying, and just enjoy it. It's fun. It's fun learning something new as well.
It's fun. I'm really sure that showing your emotions, showing your feelings through any art will be amazing to practice.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Nicole, to join me today. It's been really nice. Honestly, I learned quite a lot of this kind of art as well, and it's always fun to have different artists to show me what they're doing. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure today. And I will see you in the next episode as always, and keep in touch with her social medias.
Yeah.
We didn't say, but just follow her.
Yeah, it's Nicole Rose Designs.
Yeah.
On Instagram and
Etsy,
and
Facebook. I will put all the social medias on the description. And yeah, just have a look. If you like him, just I don't know, just contact her. And if you like any canvas, any painting, just
always, available if you want to send me a message.
Yeah, that's it. Or if you want to see her in person in a convention, are you planning to make any these days?
I don't have any coming up soon.
Right.
But I will be doing some. So just if you follow my Instagram, then you'll see what's coming up.
Keep an eye on social medias. I'm really sure that if you're interested, you will find something.
Yeah, come and see me in person.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. And like I said, I will see you in the next episode.